Hello, everybody. Time for Tami's Take. Once again on the Crown City Network. I'm Tami Devine. This is my take. Take it or leave it. I hope you'll take it to heart. This is the crossroads of politics and pop culture. A lot going on this past week. First, the shooting in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The fallout from that. Then there was another shooting in Charlotte, North Carolina, the aftermath of protesting there. Some terrible things happening there. Also, one of our former presidents, a Republican president, says apparently he's going to vote for Hillary Clinton. Eyebrow raising for sure right there. And also, what's going on with Hillary Clinton's health? Is it really just pneumonia? I guess we'll find out. We're going to talk all this over with Derrick Chevalier.
Good morning.
Friend of the show, Derrick.
Good morning.
You've been with us a number of times. Sometimes you're talking to us as a power negotiator.
Yes.
That's your normal job. But
yes.
We've also found a political pundit in you.
Wow,
because you have some very strong opinions on politics.
I do.
And you and I sometimes like butt heads on some of these things.
Occasionally. It has happened, yes.
So I want to get right into the serious stuff right away.
Right.
First of all, the Tulsa shooting. So a white woman, police officer, approaches a black man. And I think, is this the one where she tells him to get out of the car and he gets out of the car? But then apparently, you know, some people say the video shows him starting to walk towards the car, even as other officers around are telling him to stop,
Right.
and he won't stop.
Right. I actually think he was out of the car and she instructed him to stop and he didn't listen to her. So she gave several commands to stop and he actually turned around, raised his arms into the air and started walking toward his van, his vehicle, SUV. And she followed him, commanding him to stop. So, and then there's one other officer that comes, you see first that he runs up, tases, and then depending on the camera angle, it's difficult to see. The first officer tases, the next thing you see, he goes down. And apparently, the officer was frightened or made a mistake.
I think isn't that what her police chief said, that she was like a little skittish and maybe saw, I forget what the terminology is, but it's like if you see like a reaction, sort of like a chain reaction, like you see somebody else maybe reaching for their weapon and so you reach for your weapon and that kind of thing. And so either way, it's not looking good for her.
Right. It is not looking good for her because uncharacteristically there were immediately charges filed within 24 hours and I believe it's felony manslaughter, which means that she wasn't out there to actually murder this gentleman, but rather did not do her duty, that she made a mistake and fired because she felt, initially was saying that she felt he was reaching for a gun or a weapon. Apparently, though, the windows were up in the van, so that clearly that she made a mistake, and whether or not she should have been shooting when he had been tased is kind of really ridiculous anyway.
Yeah, well, and sometimes I think officers reach for their they think they're reaching for their taser, and ultimately they pick their gun. So who knows if that was what was going on in her mind? Who really knows what's going on in her mind until we go to court on this one?
Right. Well, on this one, her weapon was drawn. It was completely drawn. It had been drawn. The other officer walked up and actually tased, and then there was the firing. And it's just difficult to see what movement he made or if any movement would have justified his shooting.
Let's move on to the Charlotte, North Carolina one, and then we can talk about it all in context altogether, I think.
Right.
The Charlotte, North Carolina one, this is the shooting of oh gosh, I have it in my notes. Scott is his last name. Keith something Scott. Sorry, is the victim, the one that died at the hands of police, but at the hands of another black police officer. But that did not stop the protests and the rioting in
Right.
North Carolina.
Right.
So I think with the Tulsa one happening and then the one happening in North Carolina, a lot of people were really angry and upset and up in arms and started protesting.
Right.
But you know, the thing about it is, why do people in black communities burn down their communities? And why do they riot? And why do they shoot? And why do we as black people do this? I mean, are we animals?
Oh, wow.
No, I mean, I think we have to ask ourselves,
Okay.
we have to ask that question. This is not the way civilized people handle situations like this.
Right.
There's other ways that we can do it without burning down our own communities and without shooting people during protests. Does that not seem wrong to you, Derrick?
Well, no, absolutely. We're on 2 pages here. First of all, yes, we are animals. And second of all,
We have reason, Derrick,
Yes,
that
we
the
do.
animals do not have. We are
Okay.
not animals.
Well, we
and
should
ought
reason.
not
But is
behave
it
like
civilized for somebody to gun down an individual when there's no clear motivation to do so? The issue is not whether or not people ought to be police ought to be shooting civilians. The issue is also, as you're talking about, should we be out protesting and looting?
I'm not saying should we not be out protesting. Of course, people can protest. It is legitimate to protest. This
Right.
is what happens
Right.
in civilized societies. Protesting is fine.
But your question was,
looting,
are
burning,
we-
and killing
Right.
is not.
Right.
So
But
let's make sure we get that straight, because people on the left try to say that people on the right who have issues with how these
Right.
situations end up
Right.
are against protesting.
Right.
No one is against protesting.
Right.
Let's get it straight.
Peaceful protest, but let's look at a couple of things historically. Should people be burning and looting? I don't think that's necessarily right at all. However, the facts are that we keep seeing young black men killed. We keep having conversations. We keep having peaceful vigils and prayer meetings. And then we have everything die down. Nothing political or fundamental happens, and someone else is murdered.
Something
People
happens,
are frustrated.
No,
What
something
happens?
happens. What happens is that these situations go to court, and ultimately 99% of the time, I don't know if that's a real stat or not, but
Right.
it seems
It's
like
not.
it. It seems
Right.
like it.
Right.
The police officers are let off the hook, and and it makes it look like their shooting was justified or lawful.
Right.
And most of the times, Derrick, when we stop and go through each and every one of the court cases and the transcripts of all of that, we see that these officers most of the time are justified in their shooting.
I disagree
Why?
with that.
Why do
disagree with
these
that.
young black men? Darren Wilson with Michael Brown, the officer was Darren Wilson. Michael Brown was charging at him. He tried to get his gun. He had blood on him.
Nobody's arguing that there are instances in which shootings are not justified. What we're arguing is the fact that lots of black men are being murdered in many places around the country, and we have protests, and then we have a vigil and a prayer, and then nothing happens except somebody else gets killed.
Because most of the time-
the looting is a reflection of anger, and it's an opportunity. Yes,
People
it's
can be
opportunity.
angry, but let's find civilized ways to express this anger.
Is it civilized to
In
shoot a
Charlotte-
man with his arms in the air? That's not civilized at
But
all.
You know what? And for this situation, in
Right.
this case in Tulsa,
Right.
we're going to find out once it goes to court exactly what all the details are.
Right.
You saying, the hands up, the whole hands up, don't shoot narrative from
Right.
Well,
it's all over the country, but in North Carolina,
that is a lie, Derrick. That was
lie.
based on a lie.
Right.
Eyewitnesses, black eyewitnesses at the scene of that shooting in Ferguson with Michael Brown.
Right.
Said that he never said had his hands up, and he never said don't shoot.
Right, but we're taking individual instances and then applying them to the whole. The question is, are more black men shot by white officers than are white people shot by white officers? No. As a matter of fact, there are more white people killed by white police officers around the world.
And it's a very small statistic. Granted,
no,
no.
it's not.
Granted, someone loses their loved one. I understand that.
Absolutely.
That's painful, and we can never, blow that over.
Right.
You know, at the end of the day, a life was lost,
Right.
and somebody is grieving. I get
Right.
that, but also, why are we why are Black men and why are we in the Black community? Why are we talking back to officers and saying, and cursing them out? And why are we not standing still when an officer says, stand still, don't move?
It's called defiance. And when
it
peaceful,
gets us killed.
Well, let me ask you, well, yes, but the reactions, the violent reactions and the protesting are what's on TV. Right? That's the only way to get on TV and to bring the issue to the larger public, in hopes that eventually there will be some fundamental movement toward change from a political standpoint.
All right. Well, in Charlotte, protesters shot another protester.
Yeah, that was.
I mean, what purpose is that? What purpose is that,
it was
sir?
not an organized shooting. Two people in a heated situation. One of them had a weapon, and somebody got shot. That's what happens when people
let's not
have
protest
weapons.
like that. Is my point.
No, let's continue to protest like that, because
with protesters shooting each other?
Well, that's going to happen. That's a collateral damage in the situation. Of course it's acceptable when you have such an egregious crime of people being murdered.
So
day
during
to
the
day.
protest, protesters should shoot each other.
No, they should.
That's what I'm trying to say, Derrick.
Well,
this protest, the protesters were so wild and out of control. They were burning, they're looting,
exactly,
they're stealing,
exactly.
and they're shooting each other.
Because they're frustrated and people are being
It's
killed.
not acceptable.
It is acceptable.
It's not.
It's the only thing that produces change.
You
ask you?
You asked the protester that got shot then if
Right.
that was the acceptable way to protest.
Well, no, they'd have an opinion about that. We're both agreeing on that. But the point is, you can't say that the violence in the protest is a reaction to the violence in the community.
Agreed.
Right.
But it's not a good way to protest.
But it is
Let's
a
do
necessary reaction in order to get change in our political system.
No, we're going to have to agree to disagree on that. Okay, let's keep moving. Let's keep moving. Okay, we're way over time. Poor Nathaniel's like, rap. Okay, the next one, the Bush apparently, so one of the Kennedys, I forget who, what's her name? Kennedy, I don't know. One of the Kennedys.
What are we talking about?
One of the Kennedys took a selfie at the Bush family house, and Bush 41, the elder Bush, apparently said to her that he planned to vote for Hillary Clinton. And that made huge news.
Right.
A Republican president saying he's going to vote this time around for a Democratic president.
Right.
And that, you know what, it looked terrible to me optics-wise in that he is 92 years old. Everyone knows that he is struggling right now as an elderly 92-year-old. No, I'm not. Okay. I'm saying maybe she took advantage of the situation with an elderly president.
Maybe it proves that the elder at 92 or 93, he's brilliant. Maybe it proves that he is absolutely brilliant.
Except people on the left never called him brilliant before. Okay,
right.
So now suddenly at 92 he's brilliant.
Independent.
Oh, whatever. You are as left as they come.
Not at all.
Admit it. Embrace your leftness.
No, I am not on the left. I'm an independent voter.
Independent.
I look at the rightness of the situation. That's not the color or the shape, the rightness.
Oh, okay.
And Bush 41 is just providing leadership that his son failed to provide.
Okay. Well, we can go into the whole Bush 43 debate, but we won't. Let's talk about Clinton's health. I don't know how much time we have left. I think we have we only have 2 minutes left. Maybe we'll stretch it. Maybe we'll stretch it 1 or 2 minutes.
This is a short subject. Clinton is healthy.
She's
enough
healthy.
to be the first woman president of the United States.
She's on Coumadin. We know that for sure.
Qualified human being to
she
ever
coughs up a
draw
lung
breath
at
who's running for president.
Wait. I want to make sure people heard you say that.
Indicted by Bush 41 for not allowing black people to take residence in his
that's
buildings.
A different discussion. Stop for a minute. Stop for a minute. I want to make sure people heard what Derrick just said.
Yes.
Derrick said that Hillary Clinton is the most qualified person ever to run for president of the United States.
Most true
And
statement
that
you've made on the
is
show.
absolutely laughable and so
But
delusional.
a factual statement
it is
of
not
truth.
factual in
Who-
any way, shape, or
factual-
form. What is wrong with you, Derrick? I love you, but
It
what is wrong with you? You would
it
say
is
she's
a
the most
factual
qualified
statement
person.
of truth. She
Okay,
is the most
she's a
qualified
liar.
human.
We know this. She lied about her
And
emails.
what
We know
politician
this.
is not a liar? Trump
You
is
know?
not a liar. We
But
have him
he's
on
also.
TV.
But they say he's
Oh, but
also. He says he's not also not a politician, and so.
But he's running for
But he's
president.
but he has not served on
So
behalf
when you lie as a
of.
business person and bankrupt people and close down their businesses and not pay them, this qualifies you to serve the people that you would not allow to stay in your hotel. And therefore,
when you
we're
lie and
indicted
breach
by
na-
Bush 41.
Okay.
Of course, Bush 41's voting for Hillary Clinton.
And when you lie and breach national security,
Right.
and when you do pay for play,
Right.
take millions and millions from Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and
Yes.
all of these other foreign entities.
Is that sort of
and
like
email-
helping the
so when you
Iran
lie and
Contra
do that,
sell drugs
when-
in
no,
the
no, no. Wait,
sell
let me
drugs
finish. I let you
in the
finish.
ghetto?
I let you finish.
Okay.
Let me finish.
All
So
right.
when you lie and say all those things and you sell the office of Secretary of State,
Right.
that makes you the most qualified person to be president
No,
of the United States.
that's
That's
not-
a problem, Derrick, and it needs to be addressed by people
Yes,
on the
it is a
left.
problem, but it's not. It has little to do with their qualification. How
Excuse
about
me,
President
that's not
Reagan?
true.
President
How can you
Reagan,
say that?
Listen, because President Reagan also lied, right? He also lied. He also supported the sale of drugs into minority communities, which created the very fact that so many blacks and
So
minorities are
you've
going to
proven
prison.
that people lie, okay?
So, yes,
so that
Trump
makes
lies,
her-
Clinton lies, politicians lie.
you
We
said
agree
that
about
people
that.
lie.
People
and
lie.
Yet you're okay with her and all of her lies that are totally documented, all of her scandals. You think she is much better off. Even though you're saying everybody lies, Donald Trump lies, you say, and Hillary Clinton lies, you're saying that it's okay for her, but not okay for
Listen,
Trump or
Tami,
anybody
we
else,
can make
right?
history right here. I will vote for Donald Trump if you can name me one president or politician who is not a liar. One. And I'm in the polls today.
Okay, so who chopped down the cherry tree? Washington, right? Or no, was it? Yes, I think it was either Washington or Lincoln.
And therefore-
I'm a little
and-
hazy on that.
yeah,
but
that was
whoever with
Washington.
the cherry tree that person was the
Yeah,
one
the
who said they were
Washington.
not supposed to ever tell a lie, right?
But that was a lie because he lied
okay,
quite
we're all
a bit.
humans. We're all humans.
Okay,
I
so we
gotcha.
agree
Okay.
there is no politician who hasn't lied, so therefore it does not speak to Hillary Clinton's qualifications to be a. We agree
She can
on
barely
that.
stand up and she coughs up a lung. And they say it's pneumonia, and yet she was out among people. It's
Right.
contagious. She was out among people for
Right.
a long time. She hugged a little girl after her episode where they had to drag her into the van. Okay?
Right.
How
No, they
can that
lifted
be
her into
pneumonia?
the van.
And
They
if it
didn't
was
drag her.
pneumonia, then a lot of people are culpable for putting people's lives in danger
Right.
with her having pneumonia.
It depends
This
on
is
what
an
type
issue.
of pneumonia. She may have had walking pneumonia. They both impact the lungs, but some
They're
are
all
contagious and others are
no,
not.
they're all
Well,
contagious. Pneumonia
She wasn't
is
kissing
contagious.
people mouth to mouth to give them
She
pneumonia.
hugged a little girl.
That's not kissing the little girl.
If
And
they
what
knew
does
she
that
had
have to do with her
pneumonia and they
qualification?
hugged her,
She's
you
living
know, come
on
on. She
3
breathed
hours
on the
of
little
sleep a
girl.
night.
All right. We're going to leave it there. This is so much fun. We didn't reach any conclusions, but it's fun to talk about and duke out about these issues anyway. So that's it for Tammy's Take for today. Tammy's Take's the crossroads of politics and pop culture. I'm Tami Devine. This is my take. Take it or leave it. That was Derrick's take. Leave that.
Take that.
That's it for now. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.